In this short video, I'm going to briefly go over the classical conditioning paradigm using the video that was previously embedded on the module page. So the textbook definition of classical conditioning is that it is the process by which a previously neutral stimulus acquires a capacity to elicit a response through association with a stimulus that already elicits a similar response. Another way of saying that is you pair two stimuli and it changes the response to one of those. So what does all this mean? Again, let's consider it in terms of that video that we just watched on the module page. The definition with those terms in, it's the process by which a previously neutral stimulus, so the little boy in the video, acquired the capacity to elicit a response, salivation, through association with a stimulus, which was food, that already elicited a similar response to salivation. So the little boy was a neutral stimulus. He had food, the dog salivated. The little boy was there, he had food, he gave it to the dog salivated. That was repeated over and over again in the video, so over time, the dog started salivating at the sight of the little boy. No food was needed. Another way of saying that is you pair two stimuli, the boy with the food, and it changes the response of one of them. The boy now causes salivation. So these principles of classical conditioning and classical conditioning itself was discovered by Ivan Pavlov. This should sound familiar from a Psych 100 level class. And basically, he was just doing studies on dog salivation, looking at the enzymes in the saliva, and he noticed, or one of his students actually, noticed that these dogs were salivating before the food was even given to them. So that observation led to this discovery of a way of learning, associative learning, classical conditioning, and then thus all of the different principles of classical conditioning, which we aren't going to talk about in here because we're going to talk about what goes on in the brain. So just to go over some of these terms before we talk about what's going on in the brain, the unconditioned stimulus, the UCS, elicits a response in the absence of learning. So it's a stimulus that elicits a behavioral response. No learning is needed. It's a natural reflexive response. The unconditioned response, or the UCR, is a reflexive response. It occurs in response to the stimulus, and again, no learning has occurred. So it's a stimulus-response pair that's instinctive, it's innate. There's no learning, so it's unconditioned or unlearned. So again, in our example from that video, the food acted as the unconditioned stimulus and it naturally elicited the salivation. The conditioned stimulus is an initially neutral stimulus that comes to elicit a conditioned response after it's paired with the unconditioned stimulus. And the conditioned response is a response that's elicited by the conditioned stimulus. So again, that conditioned stimulus became the boy. He was originally a neutral stimulus, didn't cause any salivation in the dog, but by being paired repeatedly with the food, it came to elicit a conditioned response. So this is a learned stimulus response pair. And now we'll go into what's going on in the brain in another video.